everyone, and welcome to week 2. This week, we are going to be talking about male and female anatomy and reproduction, which correlates to chapters 3 and 4. The assignments that are due this week are the chapters 3 and 4 Smart Book, Vulva or Vagina Wiki, label female anatomy, label male anatomy, chapters 3 and 4 quiz, a journal, a topic for your paper, and the discussion board. Now, before I move on, I just wanted to show you a little bit about the journal. And so the journal is an area for us to communicate. And by us, I just mean you and I. Your classmates will not see your answer here. It's just an area for you and I to communicate. And so the purpose of the journal is just to will allow me to hear about your experience in this course and to determine if there are any barriers or concerns that you have, and perhaps we can work together to come up with a solution. This journal is part of your assignment, so you will get credit for completing it, and I just want you to be open and honest with me. Okay, moving on. So the topics for chapter 3 include going over the male or the female sex organs, what are they there for, and then to talk about female sexual physiology. All of the body parts of women have not yet even been mapped out, especially in terms of sexual response. Female sex organs, however, do serve several clear functions. They include reproduction, nourishing offspring during gestation, meaning while the woman is pregnant, and also after birth via the breast. For pleasure and potential attraction to sexual partners, and for relationships to demonstrate affection through shared sexual pleasure and mutual sexual sharing. This is the vulva, which is the external structure. It includes the genitals, the sexual and reproductive organs of males and females. And the external female genitals collectively are called the vulva. And as you saw, one of the assignments this week is asking you to think about, why do we call the female sex organ vagina when really that is just the canal, whereas we are really meaning to refer it to the vulva. And the vulva consists of the mons pubis, the clitoris, the labia majora, and labia minora. This is a picture of the clitoris. It is the center of sexual arousal for females, and it consists of the clitoral hood, the glans clitoris, and the crura and corpora cavernosa. All of this is covered by the mons pubis or mons veneris, which is a pad of fatty tissue that covers the pubic bone about 6 inches below the belly button. So this next slide is talking about the vulva. And as I've mentioned, it consists of the labia majora, which are 2 folds of spongy flesh that extends from the mons pubis. And it encloses the labia minora, the clitoris, the urethral opening, and vaginal entrance. They're also called the outer lips. The labia minora are the inner lips, and these are smaller folds of skin that meet above the clitoris to form a clitoral hood. Also within the labia minora are the vestibule and Bartholin's gland. And there's a reason I have a picture like this up here. And that is to highlight that every woman is different and they're all completely normal. And so every woman has different size, shape of the labias, which makes them unique and, again, completely normal. I think traditionally what we see on the internet and pornography and exotic images are one particular shape of the vulva, when really those are the minority, because every woman is different. So this is the external view of a woman if we were to look. And here you can see the mons pubis, which is generally where the pubic hair is. You can see the folds of the labia minora come together to form the clitoral hood. And then right under that hood, we have the clitoris, the glans clitoris. You can see here the urethral opening, the vestibule, which is the part between the urethral opening and vagina. You can see, well, you can't see, but it's pointing to where the ducts are for the Bartholin's gland. And then underneath you have the perineum, which is a sensitive area of skin between the vagina and anus. And then of course the anus. Internally, if we were to remove the skin, this is what we would see. So again, you can see, well, first you can see the pelvic bone. You can see the ligaments that are securing the clitoris. You can see the corpora cavernosa of the clitoris, the clitoral hood, and again, that is from the labia majora. The glans clitoris, the crura, and the crura are also known as the legs of the clitoris. They go down each side. You can see here the labia minora, the vaginal opening, the urethral opening. You can still see some remnants of the hymen, and and the vestibule bulb, the Bartholin's gland, and then the vestibule of the vagina. And then again, you can see the anus here. What you can see is the red tissue is really your muscle. And so it just shows you the role of muscle and how it interplays with the vaginal opening, the urethral opening. As you can see over here, this is muscle, and then also surrounds the anus. Internally, we first have the vagina, which is a flexible muscular structure that extends 3 to 5 inches back and upward from the vaginal opening. It is the birth canal through which infants are born. We have the introitus, the hymen, and the Grafenberg spot. Here's a side view of the female anatomy, reproductive anatomy. And so here you can see the fallopian tube, which then we have the fimbriae, which are the little tiny hairs that would sweep in a mature egg. We have the fallopian tube. Here is the uterus. The cervix is right here. It's the opening of the uterus. Oops. And here is the vaginal canal, the vagina. Directly in front of it, this is forward, is the bladder, the urethra, where urine comes from. Here you can see a little bit of part of the clitoris. So here's the crura, those legs of the clitoris. I don't know why this keeps moving. There we are. You can see the approximate location of the G-spot. And then behind the vagina are the rectum and the anus. Here's another internal structure of the female sexual anatomy. Again, you can see the ovaries, the fimbriae, the fallopian tubes, the uterus, the endometrium, which is the lining of the uterus, the cervix, the os, which is the opening of the cervix, and again, the vagina. So one structure, which is still in debate, is called the Grafenberg spot or the G-spot. To locate the G-spot, you would insert 2 fingers into the vagina and press deeply forward, so up, into the anterior or front wall. And it's about midway between the pubic bone and the cervix. Now there isn't a bundle of nerves like the clitoris or something there that you could see it on an X-ray or MRI. However, what is up there is the urethra. And you can see that circle right there. Now, surrounding the urethra is a tube that is made of erectile spongy tissue, much like the same tissue that's in the clitoris, much like the same tissue that's in the penis. Now, there's this tube that surrounds the urethra, and it's made of erectile tissue. And what that means is when sexually aroused, the tissue engorges with blood. So, some of the theories are that it's that stimulation that produces the sexual arousal or the good feeling. All right, more about the internal structure. The uterus or womb is a hollow pear-shaped organ. It expands during pregnancy to accommodate the developing fetus. The endometrium is the lining of the uterus, and that's what's shed during menstruation. And the cervix is the tapered end of the uterus. And the cervical os is just the opening of the cervix. The ovaries are the sex organs for females. And what I mean by that is they contain the sex cells. Now, the sex cells for females are eggs. They contain 23 chromosomes, and it's that which is necessary for reproduction. And so when people talk about the sex organs, it's not the penis and vagina, it's the ovary and then testes. So they contain the oocytes or ova, which are those female gametes, the eggs, ovarian follicles, and the corpus luteum. And the fallopian tube are two uterine tubes, one which receives the released oocyte or egg, and then within those they contain the infundibulum and the fimbriae and cilia. Other structures are urethra. That's the tube where urine passes through, the urethral opening, which is located between the clitoris and the vaginal opening. The anus, which is the opening to the rectum, which excrement or fecal matter passes through. It consists of two sphincters, which are two rings of muscle to control. And they also contain nerve endings that can respond erotically. The perineum is soft tissue that's located between the vagina and anus, covering the pelvic floor, which is also very sensitive to touch. The breasts have two functions, to nourish offspring, but also for sexual pleasure. When we talk about nourishing offspring, that is through lactation or milk production. Within the breast are mammary glands, and these are, in a mature female breast, they're fatty tissue. They're composed of about 15 to 25 lobes that are around the nipple. And within the nipple, the areola, which is the darker part of the nipple, and then the alveoli. Here's a cross section of the female breast. So here you can see the areola, the nipple, but then within the breast, you can see the milk ducts, the suspensory ligaments, and the fat. In terms of female sexual physiology, the female reproductive cycle is viewed as having two components. One is the ovarian cycle. This is where eggs are developing. And then one is the menstrual cycle, where the womb is getting prepared for pregnancy. And these cycles repeat monthly for about 35 or 40 years. Under sex hormones are chemical substances that really serve as messengers, and they travel through the body, through the bloodstream. And there are several different hormones that are involved in sex and reproduction for women. We have gonadotropins, which are hormones that act directly on the gonads, and the gonads are the ovaries. We have estrogen, which affects the maturation of reproductive organs, also menstruation and pregnancy. And then progesterone, which helps maintain the uterine lining until menstruation occurs. The ovarian cycle begins with oogenesis, which literal translation is egg beginning. The ovarian cycle has 4 phases: menstrual, follicular, ovulatory, and luteal. The menstrual cycle has 3 phases: menstrual, proliferative, and secretory. The menstrual phase is menstruation, the period. Menses is during the menstrual flow, which is about a period of 3 to 5 days. and menarche is a girl's first menstruation. So the menstrual cycle has a proliferative phase, which is about 9 days. And in this phase, the endometrium thickens in response to increased estrogen. The secretory phase lasts about 14 days. It corresponds with the luteal phase of the ovarian cycle, and it ends with shedding of the endometrium. Another word that may be common is called menstrual synchrony. And this is a term used to describe women who live together or work together develop similarly timed cycles. Their periods end up, their menstrual cycles end up together, synchronous. And it appears to be related to a sense of smell, a response to hormones or chemical substances secreted into the air. So menstrual problems. So one is PMS, which is a cluster of physical or physiological and emotional symptoms that may occur 7 to 14 days before the menstrual period. And so it's called premenstrual for a reason. It's pre-menstruation, before the period. Then there's also premenstrual dysphoric disorder, which are more severe and more distinct and persistent than PMS. Most women notice at least one emotional, physical, or behavioral change the week prior to menstruation. Both negative, such as bloating, irritability, and positive, more energy, heightened sexual arousal can occur. And it may depend on cultural expectations and taboos that create this negative attitude towards menstruation and menstruating women in many parts of the world. Other menstrual problems could be menorrhea, which is having a very heavy or prolonged bleeding. Dysmenorrhea, which is pelvic cramping and pains, pain associated with menstruation. It's not known to be caused by having high levels of prostaglandins, which initially was a theory. Amenorrhea, which is the lack of menstruation. Principal causes of amenorrhea are pregnancy and breastfeeding. The secondary amenorrhea can be caused by stress, having too low of a body fat, heavy physical training, cysts, tumors, diseases, or hormone irregularities. And there are many different products for menstruation. Most common are pads and tampons, which is what most Americans use. However, there are new products lately. So there are reusable sea sponge tampons. There are menstrual cups, which you can see here on the right side. On the left side is a sponge. What's nice about the alternative products is that they're reusable. What's not nice, again, is that they're reusable and will need to be washed and cleaned up. This brings us to our next chapter, chapter 4, which is male anatomy and physiology. And we'll talk about male sex organs, what are they there for, and then also talk about male sexual physiology. So for male sex organs, they are there to manufacture and store gametes, which is sperm, and then also to deliver them to a woman's reproductive tract. In addition, much like women, some of the man's sex organs provide a source of physical pleasure for the man and his partner. We look at the external structure of men. So there's the penis, which is the organ that contains both the urinary tract and the vas deferens to allow for sperm and urine to pass through it. And the penis consists of 3 sections: the root, the shaft, and the head. Also contains the foreskin or prepuce, which is the loosened skin that covers the shaft of the penis and extends to cover the glans penis. This is what is removed if a male is circumcised. If not removed, beneath the foreskin is something called schmegma, which is just this white cheesy substance. All it means is that a man just has to clean underneath the head a little better. The shaft consists of the glans penis and urethral opening, the corona, and the frenulum. There are 3 parallel columns of erectile tissue. 2 are the corpora cavernosa, which is the spongy tissue, and one is the corpus spongiosum. At the root, the tips of the corpora cavernosa form the crura, and you'll notice that these terms are very similar to the terms of a clitoris, and that is because the clitoris and the penis came from the same homologous organ, meaning when they were developing in the embryonic stage before sexual differentiation takes place, it's the same structure. And then, of course, we have the urethra, which runs from the bladder through the prostate and the corpus spongiosum. In an unaroused state, the average penis is slightly under 3 inches, although there's a great deal of variation. When erect, penises become more uniform in size. Smaller penises gain more volume, and then larger penises, non-erect, will gain less volume when erect. The mean or the average erect penile length is 5.5 inches, and the size is determined by hereditary factors. So here is the external structure for the male penis. The left hand is a circumcised penis, and the right side is an uncircumcised penis. When erect, they both actually look very similar. The internal structures of the penis, you can see here the skin, corpora cavernosa, which is the two spongy tissues, and then the corpus spongiosum is what contains both the urethra and, just the urethra. Now, what's different between a male and a female is that women have two separate tubes. We have the vagina, which is the sexual and reproductive tube, and then the urethra, which is part of the urinary system. Males, on the other hand, just have one tube, and that is the urethra. That is the part where semen or urine can pass through. Now, the scrotum is a sac or pouch of skin hanging loosely at the root of the penis, and it holds the two testicles. And it's divided in the middle by a ridge of skin. The testes are pulled closer to the body when a man is sexually aroused or when he is cold, or it also extends loosely to hang low from the body when a man is really hot. The reason for this is because the testes can contain the sperm or making the sperm producing machine, and it requires a specific temperature for optimal production. And when the body is too hot, the scrotum will loosen and pull the testes away from the body in an effort to cool down the testes. When the body is cold or when sexually aroused, the scrotum will tighten up, pull the testes closer to the body to provide them with warmth or also as a means to protect them. Now, the testes are the most highly pigmented skin than anywhere else on the body, and they're also sparsely covered by hair. And those muscles scrotum is controlled by the dartus muscles and fibrous cremaster muscle. Internally, the testes or testicles are the male reproductive organs or glands. So again, when we talk about the male sexual organ, it's the testes because that is what produces and maintains sperm. And sperm is the male sex side because, again, it contains 23 chromosomes. All right, so each testis is suspended by a spermatic cord. It contains about 1,000 seminiferous tubules, which spermatogenesis occurs. And spermatogenesis is the production of sperm. Cryptorchidism is having undescended testicles, which can be surgically fixed. More about the internal structure. We have the epididymis and vas deferens, and that's what carries sperm from the testes to the urethra for ejaculation. The vas deferens joins the seminal vesicle to form the ejaculatory duct. And the vas deferens, as you can see here, is the point of sterilization or vasectomy for men. The seminal vesicles are two glands at the back of the bladder, and they help secrete or create a fluid and secrete fluid that make up 70% of semen. And the purpose of that fluid is to nourish and transport sperm. The prostate gland encircles the urethra. It's just below the bladder, and it produces about 30% of the seminal fluid, or the semen. The Copper's gland or bulbourethric gland are below the prostate, and they secrete a thick, clear mucus prior to ejaculation. Now, the purpose of this clear fluid is it's a basic fluid, so acid base, and it's meant to coat the lining of the urethra. As I mentioned earlier, that the urethra both passes urine and sperm. Well, urine is acidic, and so if sperm were just to pass through the urethra at its state, a lot of them may die just due to the acidity. And so the purpose of this fluid from the Copper's gland is to coat that inner lining to make a safe passage for sperm to come through. And then ejaculation is the process by which semen is expelled from the penis. So here's an internal side view of the male sex organs. We'll start with the penis. You can see the urethral opening, the glans penis, which is the head, and then the urethra goes inside the body. Now the urethra goes in. You can see here it travels to the prostate gland. You can also see the Copper's gland. And you can see the bladder, the seminal vesicle, and then it changes, and now we're calling it the vas deferens. So now the vas deferens is the tube that circles around the pelvic bone. So it goes back around front around the pelvic bone, down into the testes. And then we have the spermatic cord, the epididymis, and then of course our testes. Here's a cross section of the testes. So the seminiferous tubules are where sperm are formed or created. They then go up to the epididymis, where they get mature. Then when they travel out of the epididymis and they start going through the vas deferens, is when they start making their journey out. You can see here the blood vessels and the spermatic cord. What I want you to notice, though, is really how small that vas deferens tube is compared to a blood vessel. It's about the same, maybe a little thicker. Males also have breasts, which contain the basic structures as a female breast, but not entirely. It contains the nipple, areola, fat, and glandular tissue. Although the underlying fatty and glandular tissue are much smaller in men, and they don't have mammary glands. Gynecomastia is a swelling or enlargement of the male breast, and is triggered by a decrease in the amount of testosterone compared to estrogen. Now, the anus is primarily used for excretion, but it can also be stimulated during sexual activity, and the most erotic sensation is derived from penetration for males. So more about male sexual physiology. The reproductive process includes the manufacture of hormones, the production of the delivery of sperm. Now, men do not have a monthly reproductive cycle, but they do experience fluctuations in hormone levels, and their moods may also follow this cyclical pattern. Now, testosterone is very important in men. It helps with the growth of facial hair. It supports collagen, which supports the skin. It helps develop muscle mass. It helps promote sex drive in the brain, positive feelings. It helps aid cognition and memory. It also helps with bone marrow. So there are many important functions of testosterone. Other sex hormones, we have Leydig cells or interstitial cells. These are in the connective tissue of the testes, and they secrete androgens, and androgens are male hormones. As I said, the most important one of these androgens is testosterone, which is a steroid hormone that's synthesized from cholesterol, and it helps trigger sperm production and helps regulate the sex drive. It may also be responsible for development of the secondary sex characteristics, and these are the changes that occur during puberty. Some age-related symptoms include erectile problems as the male ages, which may be reversed with testosterone therapy. Both men and women have hormonal cycles resulting in changes in mood, behavior, and sexual desire. Males' testosterone levels, though, appear to cycle throughout the day, maybe month, and possibly the season. So it's not the same cyclic every month like it is for women. Levels appear to be lowest in the evening and highest in the morning, and those levels generally decline with age. So during sleep, men may experience spontaneous erections and ejaculations, which are called nocturnal orgasms. They're known as wet dreams, and it occurs somewhere around 90% of men. Spermatogenesis is the development of sperm. So from puberty on, spermatogenesis, the production of sperm, takes place within the testes. Every day, a fertile man produces several hundred million sperm. And the sex of the zygotes, the sex of the baby, is determined by the chromosomes of the sperm. Females, all their eggs have an X chromosome. There is no differentiation. All female eggs have an X chromosome. Males produce sperm, which some contained an X chromosome, which would make the baby female, and some contain a Y chromosome, which can make the baby male. Upon ejaculation, sperm in the tail of the epididymis are expelled through the vas deferens. They're propelled into the urethra of the female, where they're mixed with, where they travel up through the vagina. And if fertilization were to occur, it doesn't occur in the uterus. It actually occurs in the fallopian tube. So it has a long way to travel and a way to fertilize the egg. So semen production is important for the male reproductive system. So semen or seminal fluid is the liquid that contains the sperm. The purpose of the fluid is to nourish sperm or to feed them on their journey. It provides a hospitable environment and as a means of transport if they're deposited within the vagina. They're made up of secretions from seminal vesicles and the prostate gland and ejaculated through the urethra. And they're thick and sticky at first, but then become liquefied once inside the woman's body to allow the sperm to swim out and to move quicker. As I mentioned, there is the homologous structures of male and female genitalia. Male and females, when you're a zygote, zygotes develop the same. There is no sex differentiation at that point. However, once the XX chromosome or XY begin to take hold, they encourage the production of hormones, either it's estrogen or progesterone for female, testosterone for male, and those influences what the structure is going to be. Is the homologous organ going to turn into a penis or a clitoris? The penile prepuce, which is the foreskin, or the clitoral prepuce, the corpora cavernosa of the penis or the corpora cavernosa of the clitoris, the corpus spongiosum of the penis or the labia minora, the scrotum or the labia majora, the prostate gland or the Skene's glands, and testes and ovaries. This concludes our PowerPoint for this week. I hope you have a wonderful week and let me know if you have any questions or concerns.